Hi everyone, this is Kelly Jones and this is my presentation on the Kolb cycle of learning. This is Dr. David Kolb. He's a philosopher and former professor. He's also the creator of Kolb's experiential learning model and Kolb's learning style inventory, as well as being the chairman of the Institute for Experiential Learning. Dr. Kolb earned his PhD in social psychology from Harvard in 1972 and has taught organizational behavior and management at MIT and Western Reserve University. Kolb's experiential learning model and learning style inventory, both developed in 1976, have been widely utilized in various fields including education, organizational development, the arts, to assess and adapt to individual learning preferences. Kolb believes learning styles are flexible and can be developed over time. The learning model has been revised in 1985 and most recently in 2011. The updated learning style inventory has expanded from the original 4 learning styles to 9 in recognition of the changes that naturally occur as a part of the learning process. His work incorporates the concept of metacognition and is based on the importance of understanding one's own learning processes. So the Kolb learning cycle is a 4-cycled approach to learning that is based on knowledge gained through experience, conceptualization, reflection, and experimentation, generating in 4 unique learning styles. During the concrete experience, learners actively perform a task or activity associated with learning. During reflective observation, learners examine the previously performed activity and gain deeper understanding of its purpose. During abstract conceptualization is where learners categorize ideas and develop conclusions. Finally, during active experimentation, learners test their conclusions by revisiting prior assignments or activities and using the newly acquired knowledge to assess old concepts of understanding. The 4 learning types generated by Kolb's learning cycle are divergers, assimilators, convergers, and accommodators. Divergers are generally imaginative individuals who employ concrete experience and reflective observation as they learn. An example would be someone who tries to fix something that's broken before calling to have it repaired. They're a problem solver, like artists and inventors. Assimilators use reflective observation and abstract conceptualization, as well as inductive reasoning. Someone who blends information to create more useful meaning. For example, when children refer to a horse, see a horse and refer to it as a dog, because both have 4 legs, and in their mind, they learn to identify a dog first, so everything with 4 legs is a dog. Convergers are likely to be practical individuals who use both abstract conceptualization and active experimentation during the learning process. An example would be a person who processes methodically before removing improbable solutions based on deductive reasoning. So like when a doctor diagnoses an illness, they go through their training based on everything they know and they try to determine what is more likely the cause of the problem. Finally, accommodators are active learners who use active experimentation and concrete experience. So an example of that would be a person who learns best by doing and appreciates trial and error. So that would be somebody who learns about a speed trap by getting a ticket. So the activity that I chose for the Kolb learning cycle is designing a budget. Designing a budget is essential to managing finances, whether personal or business. The process of designing a budget requires more than simply adding and subtracting of income and expenses. It also requires forecasting and estimating, which are metacognitive skills, which are part of the Kolb learning cycle. It also requires organizing and tracking information, which are primary components of designing a budget. Designing a budget is one of the most important aspects of managing money. Like learning a new language, it takes practice and consistency to see lasting results. The same can be said for learning strategies in developmental math. Kolb's learning cycle integrates metacognition, during the reflective observation and abstract conceptualization phases with developmental math concepts such as understanding variables and solving equations. These activities can be done weekly or monthly depending on spending habits. And an added incentive of designing a budget would be for the purpose of making a special purchase. So in creating a budget using the Kolb learning cycle, during the first cycle, the students would draft a budget and list income and expenses. So that would be considered the concrete experience. Next, they would evaluate the experience and reflect on the comparison between budgeted finances versus actual finances. Next, they would devise payment strategies. They would use lessons on variables, for example, to create payment scenarios. And then finally, they would pilot the budget by implementing the budget plan. That would be active experimentation. So the classroom exercise to demonstrate the Kolb learning cycle will go something like this. First, students will draft a budget. They will research the type of budget that suits their needs and craft a budget based on those goals. So whether those goals are to save money, pay off debt, or to make a special purchase, the student would determine which budget they need and craft accordingly. Next, they will reflect on the draft, and they would think about how well or how poorly the draft will work for helping them reach their goals. Next, they will practice possible strategies. So they would use basic developmental math principles like inequalities to help visualize a concept. For example, with E equaling expenses and I equaling income, it may look like this. E is less than or equal to I. Finally, they will implement the budget, following the steps documented in the design plan, listing income and expenses, as well as paydays and due dates for those bills. So finally, in order to test students' comprehension of the budgeting process, I would have students make a presentation to the class of their budget. After about a month of running their budget, students will present their budgets to the class explaining what type of budget they used and why, what were their goals, how they implemented their budget, the results, and what changes they will make going forward, if any. Students would also identify what developmental math concept was used in their budget. They would discuss how were the outcomes compared to the goals, what were the differences, did they save money or spend money, or was there any difference at all? They would document the results, including any time they may have strayed from their budget, and based on outcomes, make adjustments accordingly. I believe utilizing those steps would help students further gain a better understanding of the developmental math concepts they use, as well as seeing how their classmates use similar or different developmental math concepts. Here are the references I used for my project, and I thank you for your time and attention.